Welcome to the Climate Champions. I'm Lee Krevat, and I'm here with Rick Cutter, president of the nonprofit August Palm Creative. Rick, welcome to the Climate Champions.
Thank you, Lee. Appreciate you having me.
I'm very excited to discuss August Palm Creative with you. When it comes to climate change, how did you first become a champion of it? What motivated you?
My background is, 25 odd years in the technology side of energy and utilities. So I've been going to conferences and running conferences for a long time with executives and people doing different things in the energy space. So I became aware of different components of solar, wind, batteries, the challenges with the grid. And it just seemed like the little secret that's not a secret nobody knew about. You know what I mean? And I was like, wow, normal people that are outside of the industry don't understand the grid is fragile. So it kind of motivated me after I sold my day job companies to form a nonprofit to try to tell some stories to help educate the general population.
What drives you every day to get up and fight the good fight?
Just passion for doing something to give back. I'm near the end of my work career, which is good and bad, and I'm not a golfer, and I decided I wanted to do something constructive and not, watch Netflix all day or go play golf 18 holes. And as a young man, I wanted to be a filmmaker, and my family was very smart, and so not a whole lot of filmmaking going on where I live and grew up in South Carolina. So I went to business school instead. But as I, exited my company that I sold, I felt like that's the time to try to do something I want to do, and how do I give back to try to make a difference? And this is something I knew about, and I thought it made sense to do this film called Code Green.
This is very similar to my story. I left Sempra Energy and I had the time to do whatever I wanted. You would have thought I would work less, but instead I find myself working a lot because I want to do something with my life that matters, that helps. And climate change is a big deal. And if I can do anything to help, I want to do it. And that's why I help advise companies. That's why I have this podcast that you're on.
Well, I appreciate that, and I knew I liked you for a reason. There's a reason I liked you already.
You mentioned Code Green. So talk about what that is. What does August Palm Creative do? What do you do? What is Code Green?
Formed August Palm Creative at the end of 21 when I sold my day job company for the purpose of making films that matter. And we've been working on Code Green, which is a documentary basically about the transition to clean energy and the fact that we need to do it faster to decarbonize and how it impacts people today. So we've interviewed people that have been impacted by wildfires and demonstrate that there are people that are hurting today because of the impacts of carbon emissions and rising temperatures and drought and wildfires. So that's what we're doing. And this is our first project and hopefully do many more.
You mentioned selling your company, but what's the whole story? How did you get to where you had your own company? And then how did you get to making movies as a way to help?
That's kind of a crazy idea, isn't it? But so basically, quite a few years back, I worked for a software company that sold customer information systems in the utility space to energy, water, electric, gas companies. And I worked for them there for like 7 or 8 years, made relationships to a lot of utilities and decided that at some point I want to do my own thing. So me and two of my good friends formed a small boutique consulting business. We grew it at our peak. We had about 100 employees, and we did tech consulting, helping utilities identify requirements and processes, buy software, and then implement the software. Mainly customer information system, then later enterprise asset management and ERP. So we did that like 20 years. And then when we sold the business, worked there for a couple of years, and that was decided like, what am I going to do next? So I worked for that company for like 2 more years. Deciding what to do next, as you know, you've been there, takes a little bit, takes a minute, but I wanted to keep my foot in this industry. And this film kind of made sense to keep my foot in the industry because I knew something about the topic. And I had a lot of relationships from doing the conference that I used to run called Cloud for Utilities. And to roll that in, the company that I worked with, that Cloud for Utilities, they gave me those assets back last year. So we placed that brand, if you will. It's not a company anymore, but the brand is now a fundraising tool for August Palm Creative. So we've started running more conferences with tech companies that fund it to be fundraisers to help me make and pay for the film we're doing right now, which is kind of unique, but it's kind of hard to sell climate change documentaries these days with everything going on in the world.
I want to talk a little bit about cloud for utilities, if that's okay.
Of course.
This has always been a passion of mine. I, for a while, was a director in IT for San Diego Gas and Electric. And it was so obvious that we should be using the cloud to save money rather than buy our own capital, our own servers, our own storage, and then hardly use them. We never came close to using them at capacity. It
Yeah.
would be so much less expensive that people that know what they're doing with data centers.
Yeah.
Not that our folks didn't, but knew how to optimize across many customers.
Right.
And yet, because it was something we couldn't capitalize, instead we drove rates up even more by having to buy all of our own stuff. Is that what you're looking at with cloud for utilities?
That's exactly why we started it back in 2015. And utilities were slow to embrace it, some because of fear of security and data and so forth, and some because they can't capitalize it. They can go and buy multi-million dollars worth of gear and so forth, and make their rate of return with their local state public utility commission, but they can't for a service. And different states have got different rules. I think New York, if you pay for it up front, you can capitalize it, which seems kind of to defeat the purpose of transactional fees. But hey, to each his own. But that's exactly why we started it, and it's changed a little bit. The PUCs are a little bit more accepting of it. You got to explain the ROI a little bit more, but some big utilities here in California are doing a lot more cloud, and they're getting rate recovery on it now, which I think is the right thing to do. It makes sense for the consumer and for their customers. It gives more flexibility to make good decisions for their rates.
It's great to hear that that's changing. I love hearing that. I didn't realize that. I left a while ago.
Sure, 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 sure. And I jokingly tell my friends I'm sort of the godfather of SaaS. So back in the late 90s, the company I worked for, we created this thing called Single Point, which was in those days they called it Application Service Provider, ASP. So we took our CIS and put it into a little small data center in Columbia, South Carolina, and we had several large utilities that created energy services companies. And if you remember back in those days, Lee, you could not use the regulated infrastructure to host those apps. So they came to us, "Hey, can we, use your data center and your CIS?" So we got 4 or 5 really large companies hosting with us, if you will, and we did some call center, some bill print. We really became sort of a BPO, business process outsourcer, and early SaaS operator very early on, like as D-Reg started really taking off in the late 90s, and then Y2K hit, and then, of course, later with Enron, D-Reg kind of melted like an atomic bomb.
So you were SaaS before SaaS?
We were SaaS before SaaS, yes, sir.
There you go.
I was sassy.
I like it. What challenging setbacks did you have in your career?
Oh my god. Changing technology, changing business, um, learning what I wanna do early on. Dude, I didn't know what a project manager was, but I was really a project manager, right? When I first went into college, I thought I wanted to be a programmer. Back in the early days of IT, my mom was enamored with Apple and Microsoft, and these guys were in the garage making these really rich guy companies. But programming really wasn't my thing. I can still do some COBOL. That's as far as I got to programming. So then I kind of evolved into more business analysts and project management types. But the biggest challenges, I guess, were just working hard, which I always believed you really need to do to be successful, and everything else kind of works its way out. But technology changed a lot during my career. Remember, client server was a big deal back in the 90s. And now we have AI, and AI is at the forefront of, quite frankly, everything. I am just amazed at where we are with we just did our event, the AI Collaborative in New York a couple of weeks back, and listening to we had the who's who of utilities at that event, but listening to not what they're thinking about doing, but what they are doing is amazing. And I think in 2 years we're going to be even more amazed. It's going so fast. If you remember back in the day, we talk about internet speed. AI makes internet speed seem like a turtle. I mean, it's just amazing how fast it's going. So I think the biggest issue is in technology, the speed of change, staying current, and making sure you're able to continue to drive your career forward as technology changes.
Early in the days of internet, I turned to my wife and I said, "Boy, internet is gonna be part of every single company. It's gonna be how we shop, how we bill, how we communicate." And she, at the time, thought, "Well, that's a novel idea, honey. I like it for looking up recipes." But then it happened, it became part of really every company, everything we do. And interviewed somebody who said that that's how it would be with climate change technology, that over time it would be part of every single part of our lives and every business because it was going to be ultimately so important. But that was before the rise of AI. And not that I don't think climate will be part of everything that we do, but AI has now jumped to the front. I think it's ahead of climate change as something that is gonna just permeate everything we do.
Yeah, I so agree with you. Um, and the use cases are just infinite, right? And I keep finding out about new companies that have taken one of the models and had their own variation of it for this niche product they've built or they've trained it for. I'm going, why didn't I think of that? And I just think we're going to continue to see innovative companies come up with little unusual things that are solving major problems in a very cool way quickly. And it's pretty exciting.
I had this idea for a company, and maybe when I thought of it, it was something worth doing, but now I have to think that even general AI is able to do it, and that is provide a companion for my mother. Somebody that she could talk to during the day that would get to know her and know her friends and gossip with her and know what she likes. I call every day, but
Mm.
I can only talk for so long, and it
Yeah,
just seemed like that would be a pretty cool thing, a companion. She already talks to Alexa as if Alexa is a person just because she gets lonely.
that's pretty cool. I bet that could be done today, probably with your voice, as a matter of fact.
I think it's already being done, or at least somebody's working on it, and I don't intend to start another company. I've been there, done that.
I think you've mastered the art of media and podcast. I wouldn't change a thing.
Well, that is praise I don't deserve, but thank you. I had you talk about your setbacks. How about the success you're most proud of or successes?
Well, it's a work in progress, right? And we all have these big dreams in life, and for me as a youngster, it was being a filmmaker. But being in South Carolina, I don't think any of our colleges in South Carolina had a film school, so I didn't have that opportunity. So for me, I'm kind of living that dream right now. It's been a 3-year journey to make this film and make something that I care about, right? I'm not making a rom-com, nothing wrong with rom-coms, but I'm not doing that. I'm making something about a topic that I know about. I have friends in the industry, really all over. We've interviewed people from Germany, Finland, United Kingdom, Israel, all over the map. And we've traveled a lot of those places. It's truly been a journey, and I am not a filmmaker. I'm a guy that kinda to figure it out and hired some smart people to help me. I think we looked for the other day, we've had like 75 different people with their hands on this movie so far, and we're not done yet. We're in the final round of editing. But I kinda got my MBA, if you will, in filmmaking by doing it the last 3 years. So I'm very proud of this project. We've got a nice cut of a movie right now. It's gonna get better. We should be done by January, but I'm very proud of it. It's probably one of the most proud things I've ever done.
When you look ahead 10, 20, 30 years, what do you think the world is gonna look like?
I think it's gonna be a lot warmer, Lee, and, I think most people understand climate change is real and happening. I just think our culture in America and other parts of the world, we're so busy, you know, both people in a family are working because, we got to get ahead. We want a nicer home. We're just daggone busy. We don't have time to think about a lot of other items outside of what's right ahead of us. But we all have seen the studies, we've read the reports, and I think if you ask someone, it's remember the old walk around and manage by walking around? Walk your streets, walk your neighborhood, all year round, I think anecdotally people go, "Man, this is a pretty hot summer. I don't remember a summer this hot in a while." And then if you look at the data from, the governments of the world, I think last year was the hottest record on year again for like the last 8, 9 years. It just keeps being a little bit hotter. We are so close to that 1.5-degree mark according to the Paris Agreement. We're really there. We're there right now.
What a lot of people don't understand, they hear 1.5 degrees, 2.5 degrees, and they think, well, that's not that much hotter. But I don't think they look at it kind of like a baseball player's batting average or number of home runs that, yes, it might only be a little bit more, but those players that bat a little bit better on batting average have longer hitting streaks and they connect harder with the ball. How that shows itself in climate is that you don't get 1 or 2 days that are 3 degrees over. You get a streak of a week or two where it might be 10 or 20 degrees over. You get new highs and things that are not easy to deal with as a society.
Right. I remember watching a YouTube video with the scientist Neil deGrasse Tyson, and basically he made a comment about the temperature of the Earth. He said, "Remember when we had the ice age? The Earth was only roughly average of 3 degrees cooler than it is now. So 1 or 2 degrees on a massive scale is a big deal."
It's a very big deal. And it's happening. It's happened.
I truly worry about it. I don't have children, but I've got nieces and nephews, and I worry about the ones that'll be 30 years old when it's 2060. You know what I mean? The ones that'll be, I think 2060, people are gonna really feel it. Look at the wildfires. I don't mean to get gloomy and doomy, I apologize, Lee, but look at the wildfires, look at the floods we're having. I mean, every year it's the latest, the worst wildfire ever, the hottest, the largest. It's every 6 to 12 months now we're having those. It's there's no 100-year flood anymore. It's the next 100-year flood. And it's a tough issue to crack too. I'm not saying I've got the magical answer. I don't think anybody does, but I just think we need to focus on it a little bit more.
You mentioned getting all gloomy. I don't want to put you further in that mindset, but do you think the human race is going to make it? Is everything going to be fine in 20, 30 years?
I think Elon's a very rough political figure these days, but we better hope he gets us to Mars.
Oh, you mentioned Elon. Don't get me started. Thought that guy was a climate champion.
I don't know. He's an interesting character. You have to give him his due. He's a brilliant guy. He's certainly the one thing I believe is he got EVs back to where they should be. It's now an actual industry, right? We had the EV1, 30 years ago, and California changed the law and they killed them all. They crushed them all. I mean, there's a great documentary called "Who Killed the Electric Car."
Yeah.
Love that documentary. But it's so true. I mean, we could be 30 years ahead of the game if we wouldn't have done that 30 years ago, but he made it into a viable business, and he's built some good stuff.
I used
Yeah.
to think he was the climate champions, maybe behind Al Gore. And now I'm just confused and, of course, upset by what he's done. Code Green. Tell me what you mean by Code Green.
Good question. Um, it's sort of a play on words of code red, obviously. So code red means red alert, red alert. And when we came up with that title a couple of years ago, it was me, hey, we need to be, we need action, we need your attention, and we need to move more quickly. And so we thought Code Green was a simple title. It kind of explains something about clean energy. And our film's about clean energy, not just green energy, because we talk about nuclear a fair amount in our film, which since we started doing our movie has become a little bit more in vogue, which I think's a good thing because it is carbon-free energy, thank goodness. Um, fusion is something hopefully not 30 years away, but I've been hearing 30 years away for, my whole life. So maybe it's not 30 years away anymore, but we have a lot of energy that is clean out there today. And that's what our film talks about is we need a portfolio of energies that are clean and let's move to them. Unfortunately, at the same time, we're trying to move to more clean energy. Now, President Trump wants to do more fossil fuels, but the harsh reality is our energy demand is going up, 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 up. So it's we're in a tough situation where demand is going up more than we've had in 20 years while we were trying to transition to 100% clean energy. It's a real catch 22. But it's we're gonna have to probably have every source of energy we can in the short term, but I don't think we're gonna get away from clean energy because we're gonna need every watt we can get to do AI and automobiles and EV charging and all these things that we are wanting to electrify.
It's also faster to construct. It's easier to site it in a distributed way. It's getting less and less expensive. There's a lot of reasons why it's very valuable to meeting our needs.
I was able to go to Zero Week back in February this year, and I think it's John Ketchum, the CEO of, I'm probably butchering his name, apologies, John, but he's the CEO of NextEra Energy, and he was stating that they see a lot more energy demand on the horizon. And the moderator from the S&P said, "So you're going to build a lot more natural gas generation?" He goes, "No, I can do it cheaper with clean sources now." And I went, "Eureka. We have now hit the promised land." So that was a really big deal to hear an executive of a major energy company such as NextEra Energy say that. So I'm hoping that's showing us where the future might really be. Because if we can view this at a cheaper rate and to your point, faster, we need a ton more energy if we're going to win this AI race. And I'm afraid to say it, but this AI technology is a lot bigger than the internet. We thought the internet was big. This thing is gargantuan. And if we, I mean, every major country is out there trying to have the best AI, and look at the potential for it is just unlimited with medicine and science and hey, say military, but military as well. So it's a real game changer for everything.
I agree. What advice do you have for people that want to make a difference?
I think they have to find the one or two things they really care about passionately and try to find time for those things, right? Whether it's climate change or, an animal shelter or the homeless situation in their hometown. I mean, that's just out of control all over the world, especially and certainly in Los Angeles where I live. And sometimes money's not enough, right? We have huge budgets for homelessness in LA and we're not getting it done over here. But I think you just gotta find one or two things and get involved and try to do something to make you feel like you're participating and move the needle. And that's sort of my goal with my film, Code Green. I just wanna move the needle. So we're gonna do screenings that we're gonna fund ourselves next year. We're gonna screen our film in Washington, DC as well as London sometime next year. And our goal, we're going to be inviting politicians from Democrat and Republican Party and the parties in the UK. And our goal is to try and educate them and hopefully move the needle a little bit. And if I can do that 1%, I achieve my goal.
Every 1% helps. As a matter of fact, every 0.001% helps.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Are there any questions you want to ask me?
Well, you've been living in the climate world a long time, Lee. What encourages you about where we are in 2025? I mean, I think certain things have changed in the last 6 months. People have a lot of gloom and doom. I personally feel like this movement of clean energy and decarbonization is probably got a life of its own now. I'm not as down in the dumps as I was, say, in January today. I still feel like I'm very hopeful. I guess I'm curious what your thoughts are.
So, from a positive perspective, I'm very excited about the technologies that we have at our disposal. I'm on the board of a solar company that's working on a new material. We are really close. It could definitely happen. It would be able to be produced in the US. It would be low cost. It would be able to be put more places because it's very flexible and light. And there's lots of technologies like that. I have a company I advise called Grid They have a way to wrap poles that are broken and need to be replaced. And when they wrap them, they become 4 times stronger than a new pole. Costs a ton less, no outage. I mean, there's amazing technologies out there. That excites me. I was excited about the movement of our government because they were behind pushing things forward. And I'm kind of bummed because now I feel like we aren't moving as fast. A lot of people are saying, hey, we really have to wait until we have more government backing again. So that makes me a little bit nervous. I'd say government not doing so well on this issue, technology doing very well on this issue. And of course, there's the young people. And I think the young people see it. They are not as focused on the way society is with a belief that it has to stay that way. They can understand change, and their whole lives they've seen change because they're seeing AI and they saw the internet. So this is part of who they are. And I do think our and their future is in their hands.
No doubt. And uh, I'm trying to be very optimistic, and I think technology is going to come around, just like you said. We're a very innovative country and world, and hopefully that's going to get us, moving back forward. But I think the economics may help offset some of the political issues you're discussing, and certainly understand exactly what you're saying. Agree with you, but I'm encouraged because some of the people that I know out there in the regulatory side that are telling me the economics are gonna keep us moving forward. It's really not gonna matter, about the politics because the economics are gonna drive it to the point where businesses are gonna say, "This is an economic decision now. I'm going this clean direction. I'm going to this decarbonization direction." And that may mean a more meaningful position of fast change than even with the government driving, I hope. At least I'm gonna hope for that, Lee.
And a lot of that price decline is technology, figuring out ways to squeeze cost out of new generation technologies. Also, I didn't really give a great answer because I made it seem like the US was everything. And really, that's not true. The rest of the world is still moving. And if we don't move as a country, it just means that we're going to lose those industries. We're not going to be able to use protectionism to stop superior products from ultimately winning, and we better get with it because the rest of the world is still buying EVs. The rest of the world is still buying solar and wind and advanced forms of nuclear energy and hydrogen experiments and trying to figure out how to get energy from oceans. There's a lot going on.
Definitely.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk about that we haven't hit on?
I just think we need to educate ourselves. One thing I'm a big believer in is you vote with your wallet. And if you don't like the way something's being conducted, either in business or government, then you don't spend money on it, and you very clearly go buy the other product. And if you want, if you're not a fossil fuel person, you go buy an electric vehicle, right? If you can't afford a new electric vehicle, buy a used electric vehicle. We've got a great used electric vehicle market now. There are ways to make a difference. You just gotta take time, think about it, and walk through it and do your best.
My daughter just bought a used Bolt, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
One of the guys in our documentary was the executive in charge of development of the Chevy Bolt.
How exciting.
Yeah. He actually coined the phrase, range anxiety. That's one of his claims to fame. Really cool guy.
And on that awesome note, I'm going to wrap this up with a wrap. You sold your company and decided to do something groovy to help climate change. You're making a movie. I know what you said to some may sound a little crass, but you were the person that created SaaS. You're allowing a lot of people to have a job and stay alive. In your movie, you have participants 75. If people have a passion and they want to shout, you say that's the thing you should do something about. Just next year in DC, on the screen, people will be able to see Code Green. We need to get climate change in the alley and out of the gutter. When you speak about Code Green, it sounds just like butter. I'm glad you're steering our ship. You're kind of like a rudder, but when you get gloomy, it kind of makes me want to shudder. I also know that utilities using the cloud is something sometimes they don't want to utter. Thank you so much, Rick Cutter.
You've got a future as a rapper.
I don't.